Here we are, the eve of deer season 1985. Glenn Williams and Gary Hall from the Michigan Big Game Hunters Association and myself, Red Trost, are talking about big bucks, of course. This is what's on a lot of hunters' minds. We have a look at the racks we got right here. Where are these bucks from, Glenn? Ohio, Wisconsin, out west?
Nope, they're all Michigan deer.
All Michigan deer that have been taken in recent deer seasons. We're going to talk about them, try to predict where the big bucks are going to come from. So stay tuned. It's Thursday night, the eve of deer season, right here on Michigan Outdoors. It's no secret that this year is going to be a great year for deer hunters, and Glenn Williams from the Michigan Big Game Hunters Association says it's going to be a big year for buck hunters.
That is very true. We're going to shoot some big deer in the state of Michigan.
Are we going to take a lot of big bucks? What is our big buck night on December 5th? You fellows are going to be there. What's it going to look like?
You're going to see some outstanding deer shot this year.
Okay, well, Gary Hull, you're from the Williamston area. You're holding right there the 5th ranked non-typical bow kill deer.
That's right.
And you have also taken, right there, if you want to lift that one up too, this was the #1 typical killed with a bow. You qualify undoubtedly as a big buck hunter. Tell me about this season. Tell me about tomorrow and all the hunters who are listening to your every word. What's this year going to hold?
I think this year is going to be one of the finest years that Michigan has had in a long time for big buck hunters this year. The last 3 winters have been just tremendous. So we've had mild winters, and the hunting pressure, I find, the last 2 or 3 years has been way down. I haven't saw that many hunters, so I think this year's going to be just a tremendous year for big buck hunting.
Okay, so the deer are up. If we look on our map here, last week, Ed Tucker, regional biologist in the southern part of the state, identified these 3 areas are the ones with the highest concentrations of deer. The big buck areas are outside of those areas with the high concentration. In fact, John View's buck, this one right here, which took our big buck night 2 years ago, this deer here, a tremendous rack, this was taken in Oakland County. Your deer, Gary, were taken in Ingham County. As far as the northern part of the state, Gary Bushell said that this band always has the highest concentrations of deer. It has the highest concentration of hunters, but the big bucks come from the tip of the northern lower. And throughout the UP, this is where the concentration of deer are the highest, 100 deer per square mile in some areas. And this is the Menominee area, Delta, Dickinson, Iron, but the big bucks are generally going to come from the Lake Superior watershed up in there in the Keweenaw area. Now, Glenn Williams, you've scored more deer than anybody in the state with the Boone and Crockett method over the past few years. Is this where the trophy bucks generally always come from?
The trophy bucks do come from those areas, but if you really want to kill a trophy buck, that whole upper peninsula is conducive to
The entire UP?
the entire UP. There's been some outstanding deer shot in the UP that a lot of people don't know about, that we have discovered them. We have found deer that, one deer that's 20 points bigger than Paul Mickey's deer, and one about 5 points bigger than Richie's deer. So the big deer are out there. We just have to discover them, that's all.
Okay, this band, do you think that any record book bucks are going to come from this area where most of the hunters are?
It's possible, but it's very doubtful. It's these deer in this area here, they don't get a chance to get some age on them. They should really get about 5.5 years age on them to be mature bucks.
So in the fringe areas is where the big ones will come from. You say the buck-doe ratio this year, Gary, that you have seen more bucks in comparison to the does this year than other years?
That's right, Fred. All the scouting this year and all the hunting we're doing right now, I'm finding that the buck-doe ratio right now is averaging about 5 to 1. 5 bucks for every doe we see, I'm seeing 5 bucks. And I contribute that to the last 3 winters that we've had. It's been pretty easy, and I don't think there's been that much hunting pressure really the last 2 years.
Well, you hunt cornfields, southern Michigan cornfields. Right?
That's right, Fred. As far as all my hunting, like I say, I love to hunt the cornfields. All the articles and in the magazines that I do write are on cornfields because as soon as all the hunters hit the woods and hit the swamps and marshes and start driving, that's the first place I find that they go, is right in the middle of the cornfield.
These deer come from the thick stuff, most of them. This Oakland County deer, that came, I think that was an opening day buck.
I believe it was.
Wasn't it? This one, this is the only buck that we have here in the group that is a UP buck. And this came from Mackinac County.
Mackinac County. It was shot by Bob Leach in 1981.
And look at the unusual drop tines on this rack that still have some velvet on the drop tines. Why is that the drop tines have velvet?
Well, Fred, a lot of deer that
Because they can't rub them off?
Well, deer really don't rub the velvet off like people think, but we could spend a whole program on that. But however, as far as the velvet being on these drop tines, I've scored quite a few deer with the velvet on these drop tines.
Right down
This
there.
deer here is a perfect example right here. These deer will lay down, well, when they're laying down, this drop tine will go into the mud or sand, and the moisture will go into the antler, and it won't really get a chance for it to dry out.
So these don't dry.
That's true.
Up here they dry, and you say it just falls
Just
off.
basically falls off.
Well, look at this rack right here. This is the #1 muzzleloader killed buck with an antler growing right out of its eye. No eyeball.
That's
for
true.
this deer. A tremendously unusual rack. What was the circumstance with this deer that from Robert Gendron, was it? who
Robert
got it?
Gendron shot this deer in 1978 in Hillsdale County.
Right down here in the area
Right.
with a high concentration
His
of
brother
deer.
had seen this deer a week prior to opening day of muzzleloader season in Indiana. He was driving a school bus, and he had put his brother onto this deer. And opening morning, Robert turned around, saw this deer, came out of the woods with 9 does,
9
and he
does.
shot it, of course, from the blind side.
Yeah,
Of
literally
course,
the
he
blind
had
side,
he had a muzzleloader, and he shot the deer and it fell down. So he ran over there, and the deer started to get up. So he jumped on the deer's antlers and held him down. He laid on him for a half an hour.
pulling him
So
down.
while
Wow.
the deer got tired out, he turned around and put his foot on the antler, and he got up and he sat there and he started putting the ball back in the muzzleloader, and he turned around and finished him off.
Wow, what a buck. How it could make it this long with one eye, with an antler growing out of his eye, is amazing. But these big bucks are hardy.
They're very adaptable.
All of the deer, we get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing the racks like we're going to have on Big Buck Night. You're going to be here helping us score these bucks. Gary, hold up that non-typical there. That's the kind of mount that most people like to see. You see the skin goes all the way down. It's called a shoulder mount. And flip it around so we can see the base of it. I hope you hunters realize that taxidermists need a lot of hide and skin to work with for making a nice shoulder mount like this. Let's go to Bob Garner talking with Brad Bruce, president of the Michigan Taxidermist Association, to find out what hunters need to do to have their bucks skinned out to make a nice mount.
Now I got a deer story for you, okay? My first buck, I'd gone 9 years, I hate to tell anybody that, but I'd gone 9 years without a buck. In my first buck, I wanted mounted, nice 8-point, just about like this one, and I cut right about in here, Brad, because I knew that'd be plenty enough for a mount, right?
No, not really, Bob. We want them cut behind the shoulders, and the way we do them, and I still do them today this way, is cut right down the inside of the leg to the knee, and then we make a circle cut all the way around the back, behind the front shoulders. Okay, we would much prefer to have too much than too little, okay?
Okay.
Now, cutting it where you were indicating, you can get a neck mount out of it, but for a full shoulder mount, you want to stay behind the shoulders, and then again, cut it up the back. And you can cut almost up to between the ears, and then you can skin the hide away, which will allow you to get the neck roast out of there, and it will give us plenty of cape to work with.
But if a customer brings a whole deer into a taxidermist just to make sure, the taxidermist will skin that out himself.
Oh, sure, no problem. In fact, we generally prefer to do it ourselves.
If you want a buck like this mounted, that's the way you do it. Leave plenty of hide and skin. But here's another tip. Look at the back of this buck. This was taken and mounted in 1981, this Upper Peninsula buck, and look what happened to the back of the neck. What's the cause of that, Glenn? A
Well-
bad taxidermy job?
Sometimes.
Sometimes,
But not
in this case.
cases. Most cases, people like to put their deer head over the top of a fireplace, which looks real nice. The only problem is, when the heat gets up there, it dries the capes out, and they start pulling on the stitches and pulls apart.
So that you have to watch where you display your mount. It shouldn't be over a fireplace if you want to preserve the hide on that. A little bit about scoring. We have our Trost Big Buck Awards, which are going to be the basis for our Big Buck Night in our latest Outdoor Digest. Now, our scoring system in here is real simple this year. We have one form for our hunting and fishing awards. Real simple, Glenn. All we're going to do is count the points. The deer with the most points is going to be declared the winner of our Big Buck Night on December 5th. Easy to do, any point that's an inch or longer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Of course, we're going to have you in here mediating the disputes on what's a point. We'll see who's the biggest, but we're going to get some big racks. And that's December 5th. You fellows will be here, right?
That's right.
It's true.
What do you think about the conditions, real quickly? It's going to rain opening day tomorrow. I'm not happy about that, are you?
I am.
You are?
I sure am.
How come?
Well, as long as it's not a driving rain, I prefer to hunt in the rain because that's a good time to shoot a big buck.
Think so? You mean because it's a darker day and they're out more during the day?
Well, big bucks, most of them are nocturnal animals. And if you mess up their clock, you can catch them before they get back to their bedding area.
What do you think, Gary? You agree with that?
Oh yeah, I love to hunt in the rain too. I'll have to agree with Glenn because the deer, they don't like to lay there. They like to get up and move around and shake. Once they get wet, they get damp and cold too. So they like to get up and move around. I think it's going to be a tremendous opener this year.
Hey, it's not a real comfortable opener for you big buck hunters. The deer are all over the state. If it rains, our big buck fellas here say stay hunting all day long, and maybe you will end up with a buck that will qualify for our trophy book. Don't think you have to be big or tall or old or even experienced to make the trophy book. Now, usually you have to have a fish or a buck that qualifies for a Stroh's Fishing or Hunting Award, but sometimes we make exceptions, like we will for 12-year-old Derek Butters from Homer. His first year bow hunting, 5th time out in his blind, he bagged the spike-horn buck. An inspiration to all first-time hunters, in fact to all deer hunters, that if you're in the right place at the right time and you're a good shot, you'll put venison in the freezer. Here's a little different story from the Gladwin area. The buck on the left, the tall 8-pointer, was taken by Steve Shuppel of Canton on October 20th at 8:30 in the morning. The blind looked so good that Steve's brother, John Shuppel from Lansing, hunted from it the next day. And on October 21st at 8:15 in the morning, he took this 8-point. A good omen showing there are plenty of bucks in the woods in the North Country. Dr. Dan Gulick from East Lansing, he's a dentist there. He still has camouflage on his face this morning. He proudly shows the 10-pointer he got on October 25th. A big farm buck taken from Eden County, addressed out at 220 pounds. Lots of good eating there. Another big buck qualifier with a 10-point is Ken Trost from Powamo. He took this monster from Clinton County, weighed 190 pounds dressed, and look at the length of those tines. It could be in the running for our special award for the antlers with the longest tine. Now here's the pace setter for deer hunters throughout Michigan. This buck is a 12-point, so it won't rank highly in our Stroh's Hunting Awards because we go strictly on total points. But the Boone and Crockett system puts this deer at the top of the heap for Michigan, the #1 typical buck in the state. Long, long tines, long main beams, a heavy rack that's almost perfectly symmetrical. That's an impressive deer that was taken last year on November 16th, second day of the season, in Washtenaw County. Lucky hunter, Mark Charles Ritchie from Dexter, the holder of the #1 spot in the Boone and Crockett book for Michigan, and once again, we're going to make him our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Hunter of the Week.
There's really not much of a chance, although there remains some possibility that we'll be able to use handguns for deer hunting in southern Michigan. Jerry Bartnick says he's going to make a last-ditch effort to try and get that bill through the Senate, but I wouldn't count on it. The bottom line is there just isn't much chance. We're running out of time. License package that would remove the deficit out of the Fish and Game Fund by increasing some license fees and making some changes in licensing law. Well, it did clear the House Conservation Committee last week. What to expect on the floor of the House, though, where they need 56 votes to pass this? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Reminder, too, that once you bag your deer, the deer check stations are open Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at White Cloud, Clio, and also at Alma. If you stop there, the DNR can get much needed biological information about the shape of our deer herd across the state, and also you will get a successful hunter patch. Now, if you can't make it to those check stations, any of the DNR offices will check in your deer Monday through Friday during normal business hours. Deer car collisions are also up astronomically, about 26,000 deer car collisions last year. It means that things are well with the deer herd, but it did cause about $50 million worth of damage, well over 1,000 personal injuries to occupants of the cars, and also 5 deaths last year. In this week's outdoor reminder, all deer hunters must wear hunter orange on both public and private lands, and that's a new change in the law. Even if you're hunting with bow and arrow, you must wear the hunter orange.
Don't get into a panic, bow hunters. This hunter orange law applies to you only during the November 15th through the 30th gun season. But if you do hunt, you can hunt from a tree stand.
That's right, Mitch.
Must wear hunter orange.
Absolutely, and you must have a deer hunter or a firearms deer license, too.
Right.
Okay, Fred, question here from Robert Jensen of Oklahoma. It's actually several questions. He says, I started using a day pack this year for hunting, and I find it very useful. Your advice in the recent digest is very good, but where do I put my back tag? High on my back, my hood covers it. In the middle of my back, the pack covers it. I remove the pack at my deer blind, so I really shouldn't put it on the pack. If I keep switching it from place to place, I will lose it. Does it have to be visible? Your digest article says your tag is in your fanny pack. Is that legal?
Batch of questions there, Bob. I'll start with the last one first. I carry my back tag in my fanny pack. This, by the way, is a little fanny pack that I put on, and it has my knife, compass, all kinds of things in it. And I grab this whenever I go hunting or fishing. And year-round, I keep the ingredients here, I keep year-round. I do keep my back tag because I do use different hunting jackets. But I always know that I put it here. I keep things like, a little toilet paper, matches, an extra blaze orange hat, and then if it's real cold, I'll put on this knit cap. I have some rope for dragging out the deer, as much of a blaze oranges as possible, some extra hunter orange. Oh, candy bar, Bob. Here, why don't you take
Thanks.
that with you?
I'll take that
I'm
one
sure
up
you
with
can use it. But this is what I carry a lot more than that in my fanny pack, including the back tag. Now, the question that Bob says, in the middle of his back, does it have to go on your jacket in the
Yeah,
middle?
or put it on the back of your hat. They really don't write that many back tag violations. Just make it visible on your back somewhere.
So you could put it on the back of your hat, like that, and leave it on the back of your
And
head.
feel pretty secure you're going to be okay.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. You know, I've gone from a day pack, meaning like a backpack type with the two straps, to a tote bag, which I think just discovered this year. Finally, somebody, I think Royal Oak makes these, came up with a dandy thing. This is much easier to put over your shoulders than a day pack, and you can put it around the back like that. In fact, your back tag would show. if you
Yeah,
put it
it
back
sure
there.
would.
This has everything in it: extra clothing, extra mittens, extra scarves,
Well, there's
rain gear.
There's enough room if you switched it around. You could use a gun with a sling on it.
Right,
Too.
and speaking of guns with a sling, I just want to show this, which is kind of slick. Most hunters, I think, on their rifles have a sling, useful for carrying your gun in and out of the woods. Now, here's a sling that has gotten not a real great job on its promotion and publicity. It's called an action sling, and it's kind of complicated to explain. It has a double band right here, and this is how you wear it. You take it, you can wear it either direction, you put it on like this. So while you're out in your blind standing there, you don't have to touch your gun, but it's ready to pick up and shoot. I think that is really slick. Don't you, Bob?
Yeah, it's
I
on
think-
my gun.
That's right, this is your 30-06. But this is called an action sling. In fact, you can wear it the other direction, too, if you wish. You can put it on like that and have your gun pointing up in the air. Again, you just pick it up, and it's free to shoot.
If you're going to stand it, it would be a definite asset.
Right, so make sure your sling is in shape, your backpack or day pack or tote bag, and have a good season. And let's see, before we get to our feature on what to do with your deer hide, see if you can answer this question to our outdoor quiz.
How does hunting compare with football when it comes to safety? The National Safety Council says that out of 100,000 hunters, about 9 will have accidents that result in injuries. Of 100,000 football players, about 27,000 will be injured. And football players don't carry any guns.
Custom sew, you have personally sewn all of this?
No, I think my wife does that.
Oh, she does?
Oh, yeah.
But this is your business, your full-time business?
That's right.
Where do you work out of your house? Or?
No, we have a store in Tecumseh, right downtown Tecumseh.
Is all of this deer hide or leather? Or?
Well, majority of it's deer skin. We specialize in deer skin, but we also handle cow hides and suede and things like that. This outfit here is a cow suede.
And what about this over here?
Well, that's deer skin. It's been reversed. I got the smooth side on the inside because the hides were in poor condition. And I've been wearing this coat for about 10 years now in the winter.
The smooth side, you mean on...
Well, you won't see it, Fred, because what I did is that...
You have lined it.
Yeah, I've lined it, see? But it's that skins were in such bad condition, so I reversed it, so that the bads wouldn't show, so I get some more use out of it.
Where do you get the deer hides?
Well, most of the people that come in, they bring their own, and then we custom make whatever they want from their own hides. The deer hunters drop them off for me. I buy skins from the tanneries, buy them from hunters, however I can acquire them.
Does somebody have to, when they bring you the hide, already tanned?
Already tanned, and we'll make coats, vests, or whatever.
So they have to get it tanned before they bring it to you?
Yes. Well, if they don't, then I'll take it to my local taxidermist and have it sent out, you know, to the tanneries, and just like anybody's local taxidermist can do. So,
How many deer hides does it take to make a pair of gloves?
a pair of gloves, you should get about 2 or 3 pairs of gloves out of one skin. It depends on the size of the skin.
How much does it cost to have that done?
They run about $12 to $15. Depends on the style of glove that you select.
Really? Out of your own deer?
Right.
Now, what about a jacket? That must take 4 deer hides?
It takes about 4 to 5. It depends on the style of the style of jacket that you want and the size of the hide. You know, deer skins run anywhere from 6 to 12 square feet. So, and then we don't strangle them, so there's holes in them, and depending on how many and in what position, it has a bearing on how many of them need. Yeah. So we really have to look at them to determine for sure. And in man size, you know, there's some guys like you and me, and there's some smaller ones and bigger ones, and so that all has a bearing on how much material you need.
Huh, but that's interesting. Are there many other people in the state who do this type of thing?
I don't know of anybody, Fred, that's doing it commercially like we are. There's obviously some people in their own homes, you know, doing some custom work for people. That's how we got started, you know. People call you up and they want to know if you can do something for them, so you give it a try, and it turns out, and he just keeps growing, and then all of a sudden you're in business, you know.
This is a little different dish for Michigan Outdoors. This is breakfast sausage.
Something you need to start the day out with.
That's right. Now this is, it says here in our Outdoor Digest for November 14th, breakfast sausage is a Kathy Beitler original recipe.
That's right.
You
It
wanna,
is.
explain why we came up with this original recipe?
Well, we get requests for sausage all the time. Instead of using kits like this, like you can buy, it makes it nice and easy. I just took some spices that I generally have and made a sausage recipe out of it.
Well, fact be known, people who have sausage recipes don't like to give us all the details
That's right.
of exactly what's in them. This is from Vicksburg Locker down in Vicksburg. Willis has been to our outdoor fair and different events, and we have some of their sausage kits here. Smells good, and you put together a recipe just based on your experience.
Right, without smelling this beforehand.
Now, here's what this breakfast sausage looks like right here before it's cooked. And this is not venison.
It
What do you
is.
call
It's
it?
elk venison.
Elk venison.
Elk
okay,
venison.
You won't call venison strictly deer meat. Okay, this is elk meat. The one thing in here that when this was ground up, it did have the connective tissue and the fat in here.
And there is some fat added to it.
That gives it a distinct wild flavor.
Right, and yeah, you can taste the wild flavor in it. I can.
Now, Bob, why don't we ran a test. We wanted to find out whether freezing a sausage recipe
It does.
makes a difference. So, Bob, why don't you taste this? We'll use Bob as our guinea pig.
Let me
He's
get a big piece here.
big piece.
That's patties that have been frozen. Cooked and then frozen.
That's from this patty, similar to this patty. You made the recipe, you cooked
the
it,
patties and
and
then
then froze
froze it.
How does it taste?
It's okay.
Kind of bland.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it
It's kind of bland. A little bit bland.
Okay, now this patty here is one that you put the ingredients
All the
together.
ingredients in and then froze it. We didn't cook it first.
Same recipe?
Same, exactly the same amounts of everything.
Now that's supposed to pick up strength.
It does. Yeah, if you're going to freeze it, you don't want to add a whole lot of spices because they do get stronger.
Much better and not nearly as dry, because freezing dries things out, too.
Right.
So
Much better.
cooking, freezing, we rank no good.
Right.
No, not no good.
Well.
Extremely passable.
That's extremely passable to Bob Garner. Making the sausage and then freezing it after it's made
Just fresh
picks
frozen.
up some strength. Now try this. This from this patty here, which is
Made this morning. I put
Made
the
this
spices
morning.
in this morning.
isn't that good?
Yeah, that's
That
great.
is good. Kath, what are the ingredients?
Okay, everything you've basically got in the kitchen. Onion powder.
Okay, onion powder, about
half a teaspoon.
half a teaspoon.
Yep. Garlic powder, a half teaspoon of that.
You can really taste that, too.
Yeah, you
taste the
can.
garlic?
It does get strong.
The
and
dill
dill
weed?
weed. And I added a whole tablespoon of that. And I think
Okay.
that's why it got stronger.
That picked up the most strength when it was frozen.
Right.
Sage,
A quarter teaspoon.
Okay.
Paprika is a 1/4 teaspoon. And then
And
a whole tablespoon of seasoning salt. So it's not real salty. We use powder instead of salt.
You just mix those together with the ground meat.
And then made
and-
patties and cooked it.
Hopefully this will be
Right.
second day sausage.
Second day sausage?
Yeah, because, you know, first day you get the deer, the second day for
That's right.
breakfast, hey.
Got
Cook
something to
up that
grind up.
sausage. Well, that's
That's
right
right.
here in our digest, breakfast sausage, a Kathy Beitler creation.
Hey, it's good.
If you didn't get the ingredients, folks, Bob, why don't you tell them where they can get a copy? Put my scope up. Oh, I don't. Looks like a doe. Yeah, it's a doe. Uh-oh, that little one is getting a bit irritated or concerned. Look at how she flares the hair on her rump. Not just her tail, but on her rump. That's what does will often do. You won't find a buck do that. A buck would sneak off, come by in just 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But this is what makes deer hunting. Just seeing deer getting this close to these animals. Wow, that big doe, she's a nice one. Nice big doe. She knows something's wrong because that other one is signaling. Well, they're gonna sneak off. At least they aren't too alarmed. He didn't snort. She didn't snort. So they might be back. Or a buck might be back after this. That's what